My name is Rachel, I'm 30 years old, and I live in a small town along the Gulf Coast. Hurricanes are part of life here, but this last one was different. The warnings were serious, so I evacuated like everyone else. I stayed with my parents in a nearby town, anxiously waiting for updates. When the storm finally passed, we heard my neighborhood wasn't hit too badly. I decided to head back home the very next day. I expected to find some damage, maybe a few broken windows, some debris in the yard. But as soon as I pulled up to my house, my stomach dropped. The front door was kicked in, hanging loosely from its hinges. My heart started racing. I wasn't ready for what I saw inside. The entire house had been torn apart. Every drawer in the kitchen was open, cabinets emptied onto the floor. Furniture was overturned, pictures ripped from the walls. I moved through the house in shock. Everything of value was gone. My TV, jewelry, even the little bit of cash I kept in a drawer for emergencies. The looters had stripped my home clean. I felt violated, but I had no choice but to start cleaning up. I grabbed a broom, trying to push aside my fear as I began sweeping up the mess. The silence in the house was eerie, broken only by the occasional gust of wind rattling the broken windows. I kept telling myself the worst was over. The looters had come and gone. But then I heard it, a creak from upstairs. I froze, heart pounding in my chest. The house was supposed to be empty. Slowly, I set the broom down and crept toward the stairs. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe the wind had shifted something. But as I got closer, I heard it again. Footsteps. My throat went dry as I reached the top of the stairs. Every part of me was screaming to leave, but something made me keep going. The footsteps stopped. I stood in front of the bedroom door, hand trembling on the knob. Slowly, I pushed it open. Inside, a man was standing by the window. He was holding a crowbar in one hand, his clothes stained with dirt and blood. He looked at me, eyes wide with panic. "Don't scream," he said, his voice shaking. "I'm not here to hurt you." I couldn't move. My body was frozen in place. He kept talking, saying something about how he and his friends had taken shelter here during the storm, but I wasn't listening. All I could focus on was the blood. There was too much of it for him to have just found shelter. What happened? I managed to choke out, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. There was a fight. It got out of hand. I didn't mean for it to happen. I backed up slowly, my mind racing. Whoever he had fought, they hadn't walked away. I glanced toward the door, trying to figure out my next move. But he saw it. "Don't," he warned, taking a step closer. "If you scream, I have no choice." I nodded, forcing myself to stay calm. "I won't," I whispered, though my heart was beating so hard I thought it might give me away. I was trapped in my own home with a killer. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. He was standing between me and the only exit. My phone was downstairs, and there was no way to call for help without him noticing. He wiped his hands on his already stained shirt. "I'll leave soon. Okay? Just don't do anything stupid." I nodded again, my mind racing, searching for an escape. I needed to find a way out before his panic turned into something worse. My name is Lena Matthews. I'm 38 years old, and I live in a small apartment building in Miami, Florida. When they first announced the hurricane, most of my neighbors left, but I stayed. I thought it wouldn't be that bad. I've seen hurricanes before, but this one was different. The floodwaters came so fast. Within hours, the entire first floor was underwater. I could hear the wind howling like a beast outside, and the building groaned with every gust. People who stayed behind were now in a frenzy, running up the stairs, screaming, and trying to break through the rooftop door to get higher. I grabbed my bag and ran too. I wasn't ready for what was waiting on the third floor. Sam, my neighbor, was sitting in the hallway. His leg was bleeding badly, a deep cut from something sharp. He must have fallen when the water started rising. He looked at me, desperate. "Lena, help me," he begged, his voice weak. I froze. I wanted to help, but panic was creeping in. The water was still rising. We didn't have much time, and the rest of the group was already ahead, hammering at the rooftop door. I looked at Sam's leg, blood pooling around him, soaking into the carpet. It was bad, but helping him meant risking both our lives. "Please, Lena," he whispered again, clutching his leg, his face pale. The sound of water rushing up the stairs snapped me out of it. The water was coming fast, and I had to make a decision. Sam wasn't gonna make it if I stayed. And if I stayed, maybe I wouldn't either. I'm not proud of what I did next. I looked at Sam one last time and turned my back on him. I didn't say anything. I just ran, leaving him behind, hearing his weak cries fade as I climbed higher. When I reached the rooftop door, the group was still there, panicking. The door wouldn't budge, and I could see fear in their eyes. We were running out of time. The water was coming. Then someone screamed. It was a loud, piercing scream that made my skin crawl. I looked back down the stairwell and saw the water reaching the top of the last set of stairs, swallowing everything in its path. That's when I noticed the crowd starting to push against each other, trying to climb over one another to escape. The panic was uncontrollable. I couldn't do it. I couldn't wait with them. I pushed my way to the side and ran to another stairwell, one that led to a side exit. I found a ladder that took me up to the roof from there. When I finally made it to the roof, I looked around. I was alone. The group I had left behind didn't make it. I stood there, soaked to the bone, watching the floodwaters rise around the building. The helicopters never came. The world below was silent, except for the wind, and the only thing louder than that was the guilt tearing me apart inside. My name is Carter, I'm 45, and I work in a small city along the coast. I should have listened when they sent out the hurricane warnings, but I thought I could beat it. I had been through storms before, so I figured if I took the highway bridge back to the mainland, I'd be fine. I was wrong. The rain started coming down hard as soon as I hit the bridge. The wind picked up, shaking my car, but I kept driving. Traffic began to slow, then stop altogether. Everyone was stuck. I could feel the tension building as the storm intensified. The bridge creaked and groaned under the pressure, like it wasn't built to handle something this strong. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. I could see people in the cars ahead turning around, trying to go back, but the line behind us was endless. There was nowhere to go. I could hear the wind howling, and the rain was pounding against my windshield, making it almost impossible to see. My heart started racing as I realized how bad this was. Suddenly, I saw it. A car a few vehicles ahead of me skidded on the slick road. The wind pushed it sideways, and before anyone could react, it slid right off the edge of the bridge. I watched in horror as it plunged into the dark, raging water below. My stomach turned. The bridge was failing, and I was stuck in the middle of it. Panic set in. Do I stay in the car and hope the bridge holds? Or do I get out and try to make it on foot? The wind was so strong, it felt like it could pick me up and throw me over the side. But staying in the car felt like a death sentence. The bridge was shaking more violently with each gust. I had to move. I pushed the door open, the wind immediately slamming it against the side of the car. The rain hit my face like needles, but I forced myself out. I looked around, and a few others had the same idea. People were abandoning their vehicles, running toward the mainland, hoping they could outrun the storm. I started running too, my feet slipping on the wet pavement. The wind was so strong it knocked me off balance more than once. I kept glancing back at my car, the only shelter I had, but I couldn't turn back now. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed through the air. I turned just in time to see a section of the bridge behind me give way, the road crumbling into the water. It was like the whole world was falling apart. My chest tightened. Every breath felt harder as the storm swallowed the bridge piece by piece. There was no turning back now. It was just me, the storm, and the collapsing bridge. I had to keep running. If I didn't, I knew I'd end up like the car that disappeared into the water.